Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Para Connection Podcast. You're here with Schuler Johnson from PILT Paranormal, and we are now on episode 3. We're going to be taking episode 3 along here with Bill and Sam from Idaho. They are today's special guests, and I'd have to say I am pretty excited to have Bill and Sam on because not only are they paranormal enthusiasts, but they have also been paranormal investigators. So Bill and Sam are in Idaho right now, but are originally from Indiana, such as myself. So that's really cool because there are some locations that we have both been to and we've been able to relate to. With that being said, there are also locations that I've not been to but they have, and vice versa. So it's really neat to be able to bring this in that we're both from Indiana but we've both been to different locations. So we can take this information and kind of combine, different things that we've experienced from similar locations and also share our experiences and expectations from locations we've not yet been to. So with all this being said, let's go ahead and jump into that phone call that I made with Sam and Bill here and get this podcast on the road, because I have to say this podcast episode's pretty good. I mean, not only are we going to be talking about the spiritual side and possibilities with the paranormal, but we're going to jump into the scientific side as well, which is really cool because Bill really knows how to break it down. So let's do it. Well, Sam and Bill, welcome to tonight's podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, right on. So, let's see. Paranormal basics. The funnest topic, in my opinion, and I'm making that word into a real word. Paranormal basics. When you guys hear paranormal, what do you, we'll jump right into it. What do you think about when you hear paranormal or, when you're trying to jump into the spirit world? What hits your mind first? What highlights?
When I hear the word, it's kind of like just a broader sentiment, I guess, just something that's inexplicable in that moment. And, it's something if you can't find an explanation for it, kind of fits that bill. I don't necessarily 100% associate it with like ghosts or spirits all the time.
Yeah.
It can always be something else. I mean, you can always go deeper. We're discovering new things all the time. But that's kind of how I think of when I think of that word.
And for me, whenever I hear the word paranormal, I just think of like generally things that are associated with mortality. Not necessarily like just the afterlife, but also things like, you also kind of think about, I don't know, kind of like beasts and stuff,
Okay.
Werewolves, vampires, like I kind of lump those all in the same category, just because it's like kind of like a fantastic phenomena that people aren't necessarily familiar with or know that much about.
Yeah.
And especially on the spirited end of it, I feel like there's a lot more evidence to suggest there's stuff actually going on, and we've both had our own experiences as well.
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people have.
So you guys feel like when it comes to the paranormal, there's a lot more to the nature of what paranormal kind of describes than just spirits, then?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's
100%.
a super broad brush of a term.
It's a blanket statement, essentially. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
it's right up there with like the word sports.
Yes,
What do you think of when
exactly.
you think sports? It's like, well, I think of all kinds of things. It's like, but they're all kind of along the same vein.
Yeah.
That's a great
So-
example. I like that a lot. Yeah, because, we're talking about not just the spirit world, but cryptids, and we've got other dimensional creatures. We've even possibly, we got aliens. I guess it goes into the supernatural term, too, but, for myself, when I think paranormal, of course, the first thing that hits my mind is spirits and ghosts, because for my own personal experience, the first thing I've ever encountered was a spirit. But to keep on the same topic here, when you guys think about paranormal, whether it's cryptids or the spirits or anything like that, what do you feel the nature of these entities are? Like, what's their purpose? Is it kind of like humans where we get to live and develop, or do you think they have a more greater mission, like to aid humans or to do something that we may not even have the ability to imagine?
I think it just depends on what you encounter and what you're dealing with. There's definitely layers to it.
Yeah.
I 100% believe in, residual hauntings where something just left an impression on a place, because I've encountered a lot of that. But I've also encountered intelligent, and I've encountered intelligent in the positive aspect and in the negative aspect.
Okay.
I think some of them are also just kind of lost. That kind of sounds really cliche and like cheesy, but it's true.
It is.
Yeah.
It can only be cliche if it's something that's been said often, and there's a lot of cliche statements out there that are pretty true.
Yeah.
And but whenever I look at like paranormal entities and the spirit idea of it, I think of it more as just like it's an energy. And one of my professors in school always said, anytime you're investigating a topic, don't be afraid to go too big with the idea. And with that in mind, I look at it, I tend to go through life looking at through a very broad scope. Like I like to look at things on like a universal scale.
Yeah.
And generally everything, I mean, we're all a bunch of atoms condensed to a slow vibration, to quote Bill Hicks. And that being said, I mean, we are all energy, and that energy can, it can stay, it can move, it's very fluid, and it permeates everything. So I feel like spirits are just another form of energy that maybe we can't exactly tap into with our current physical ability, but you look at animals and stuff, and animals can pick up on that energy, and we've noted that, like people have noticed that phenomena
for centuries,
forever. And then you see things like and it doesn't always have to do with just paranormal stuff, like you could take like a tsunami, like the one that hit Indonesia a decade ago. Like one of the first things that they noticed prior to the tsunami was all the wildlife just disappeared, and they couldn't find them. And then a tsunami rolls through, and then they all come back. So it's like, they can tap into that energy, and it's something that we're kind of disconnected from on an evolutionary scale. So whenever I look at the paranormal, I just look at it as, another form of energy that we're not exactly tapped into. But it's something that we can strive to tap into.
For sure.
Wow, with that being a realistic approach and also philosophical, I think that's a great way to look at this type of topic. You can take it from the scary, unknown, supernatural aspect, but also tie it into what you just described in a modern day type of aspect, with natural disasters, in a sense. And
right.
I think doing that, being able to have that knowledge and ability to take one and the other and put together, that kind of forms like a puzzle, pieces to a puzzle. And I've spoken with several people about, not just things like this, but religion and techniques and other sorts of forms where you bring different types of backgrounds together and it kind of comes into one. You get that answer for that one question, which is kind of mind-blowing. It's like, how can you get the right answer to one question from different planes, of information? But it's possible,
Right. I was just gonna reference another thing. Is like one of my favorite, kind of cheesy, but one of my favorite quotes from a Marvel movie, because we're
nerdy.
super wrapped
Go
up
for
in
it. Marvel and all that good stuff is approved here. You're fine.
Right. So in Doctor Strange, when Stephen Strange goes to the Ancient One, she shows him the book of like different maps from like MRIs, CAT scans to like energy flow, and what's the other one with the needles?
Acupuncture.
An acupunctural map and all that. And when he like pushes back against that, she's like, you've spent your entire life looking through a keyhole, or looking at life through a keyhole. And the second that you're told that you can expand that view, you narrow your focus. And it's like I totally feel that. Like, that is exactly how I feel about it. It's like, we have all these different things all over the world that we know about, and we can use that evidence to support other theories and other parts. Paranormal is very much included in that. And a lot of people push back against it. Like, no. Like, it's okay if we use that information to justify X, Y, Z. But you start talking about that, and it's like, oh, no. It doesn't apply there. And it's like, no. Like, you should totally apply it there because it's relevant to it. So...
that's a great point there too, Bill. And do you feel like it's more or less that people are afraid of what they don't know? Is that why they try to push it away, or is it something they just can't comprehend? Not that they're afraid, but they just don't know how to bring it.
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of fear and belief. Like, a lot of people aren't terribly open to new ideas within their current belief system.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of people can be closed off, but I feel like if you're open-minded with it and just recognize that, maybe we don't have all the answers, or maybe somebody you're listening to doesn't have all the answers all the time, and maybe, life is more like a puzzle and we kind of have to piece things together to get a clearer view of what's going on, then that's what we have to do. But I think fear definitely plays a role, even on a historical scale. We used to burn witches, like in Europe, and as a race historically, or as a species historically, we haven't always been the most open-minded. And so I think fear is a big driver for that. And I think that the other part is just the power of belief and kind of just not necessarily wanting to investigate that.
Yeah.
But, it's an important aspect to investigate because you never know what you might find in it.
Yeah.
Or what you might learn about existence.
You're so right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam and Bill, you guys make great points with that, sincerely. And, as much as it's kind of mind-boggling, it's kind of intriguing how we as a species can work like that. Oh, before I forget here, too, to get on a quick fun note here, for all the Marvel people out there, personnel, we are not doing anything to hurt your copyright or reservations, just so you know, but great points were made.
Marvel, you're doing stuff right.
Speaking the truth, through the movies, man.
There's the real gospel right there.
With all these points you guys are making, let's dive into a little bit about you guys on a more personal level. How did you guys start getting into the paranormal? And also, do you guys have a paranormal team? Are you guys currently active in the paranormal field? Could you elaborate a little?
So we're trying to be more active. I had a team a while ago with my ex. I had a YouTube channel about 10 years ago. Okay. 10-ish. 12, maybe more. Gosh, I'm old. But
10 years ago when she was 11, because she's totally 21 now.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Totally. I've been 21 for a decade. It's fine.
Hey, the compliments are golden.
Gotta get them in.
But, we're trying to be more active. I've definitely got some stuff in the works with the YouTube channel. Like I said, we kind of want to start a podcast ourselves.
Absolutely.
I'm still kind of toying with the idea and trying to narrow things down. I really just don't have a setup for anything currently, is what it is. We have our ghost hunting equipment. We just don't really have the setup to put it out there to the world quite yet.
And on my end, I just lack the time because I'm pretty invested in developing my professional career.
Yeah.
Of course.
But, so right now we're pretty much sitting at a hobby level with aspirations to maybe go a little further.
For sure.
Well, that's enough to make something live. So, guys, don't let go of that for sure.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, absolutely not. Because that's something that really interests us. I know for me, one of the things that really got me into it, there were one's an experience, the other one's just kind of actually I have a couple experiences that happened when I was younger, not both spirit related. And then there's just kind of like a mindset. So I've always had this mindset where kind of macabre, but I never really, like death, I never really saw it as like an end point. I saw it as more of a jumping off point. So like when it comes to like, you know, deaths in the family, deaths of pets, things like that,
Yeah.
I see it more as like, you know, it's the next adventure. And I'm always down for adventure. Like my career is adventure. And so I've always seen it as like a, man, wonder what's on the other side of that veil,
Yeah.
you know? And so because of that, that's, you know, just kind of a mindset that I've had that's always had me interested in the paranormal. And then a couple experiences that I had, there was one where, and I, you know, we talked about this just last week, but I was on my way home. I was maybe 8 or 9, and I was on my way home from Alabama, seeing some family down there. I'm sitting in the back of the car. We're in this little sedan, and I'm in the driver's side back seat, right? There's nothing behind us. There's no trunk, anything. And we crossed over this river, and like it just felt weird as we were crossing over it. And I consider myself a little bit sensitive to paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And it just gave me a weird vibe going over the river. And then I felt a left hand, and I specifically remember it was a left hand because I could feel the thumb like kind of behind my neck. But I just felt a left hand grab my left shoulder, and like, you know, from the position that I was in, there is no way anything was behind me.
Yeah.
Like all there was behind me was a seat, a trunk, and a license plate. And I felt this firm left hand grab me on the left shoulder, and I like look at it. I'm like, what? Like, what is going on there? And then,
Wow.
you know, that always stuck with me.
It's pretty vivid.
And then, yeah, it was super vivid because, you know, it might have been middle of the night, but that it woke me up. I mean, it was crazy. And then another one, which wasn't really paranormal as far as spirits go, but still kind of fits that broad stroke of paranormal, was I was sitting up in my room, and I was probably like 14, and I'm sitting upstairs, and our house overlooked like this lake, and so me and my brother are up there playing Guitar Hero or something, and we paused it because we got in an argument, fighting over, you know, oh, you know, you did this or I did that, just because, you know, I'm good at Guitar Hero, my brother. But and while that's going on, you know, I'm arguing with him, and I see this light sticking out of the window, like across the lake from me. And at first I just thought it was a street lamp, but then I realized it was sitting pretty high off the ground, like really high off the ground. And I was like, oh, it's a plane. But it was like, it wasn't moving, and it didn't have a flashing light. It was like this orange light. And I was like staring at it, and my brother's just like, what are you looking at? Like, I was like, what is that over there? And so we sat there and we watched it for a few minutes. And then this light divided into 3 different lights, and like a triangle shape.
Wow.
And we were like, whoa, like what is going on? And then this light kind of like came to be in the middle of it. Like it just kind of slowly grew from the darkness. You had like the super bright orange light in the middle, and then the one on top just like faded like really quick. Like, you know, this is me looking at it off in the distance, and this thing's like maybe 150 feet off the ground. And so the you have a triangle with the center bright light. The top point just like fades immediately, and we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then the bottom left just starts to kind of slide off, like to the left, like directly horizontal from it, and it just kind of like drifted into nothing. And then the one on the bottom right stayed there, kind of hovered and like quaked a little bit and then shut off, and then that bright light in the middle just went straight up, like to the stars, straight up.
Wow.
And we're like, what? Like, what is that? And so we immediately run downstairs and we're telling our parents, like, we just saw a UFO. Like, it had to be. And our parents were like, no, you didn't. No, you did. And we're like, I swear. Like, I swear we just saw something. It's like, I don't know what it is. And we described the whole situation. We both still remember it. And it was just crazy because I've never seen anything like that until about 5 or 6 years ago. I was seeing a video online of like a potential UFO sighting, and it did almost the exact same thing. I was like, I saw that. Like, I have seen that phenomena before. Can't exactly say what it is, but that was our first thought when we were, teenagers. And it was wild.
Man.
So I've always kind of been interested in just
anything you can't explain.
Oh yeah, anything that's just like totally unexplainable. It's like, wow. Like, I mean, what can you do? Yeah. Except try to explain it.
For sure.
Without, people being like, oh, no you didn't, or skeptical or whatever,
Man, that's just like, no pun intended, but literally out of this world and phenomenal. And before we move on to Sam's story, Bill, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you about your two experiences there.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's see, with the first one, let's go back to the one with you being in the vehicle, in the car. So for a long time, while you were a young kid, you've really been pretty sensitive to this. Before I go to my main questions, let me ask you this. As a young kid up until this point, would you say that you've become more sensitive, less, or stayed the same?
It's kind of hard to say because I feel like going back to my example with animals that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I feel like that the sensitivity is more of an instinctual thing from like a species type thing, and I think it's something that almost everything can feel. Like you can everything gives off like a vibration in my perspective. Everything has like an energetic vibration to it, but we're very disconnected as a species from that instinct. And I think much like any type of skill, like painting or singing or playing music, it's something that you have to develop.
Yeah. And
I think it's one of those things that you aren't just born like Jimi Hendrix wasn't born blasting Voodoo Child reprise. Salvador Dali wasn't born like painting melting clocks on a wall.
Yeah.
And Mariah Carey wasn't born like whistling through her throat. Like, it's like it's not something that you can just be like, hey, I have this skill. It's not parcel mouth or parcel tongue from Harry Potter. It's something that like you kind of have to attune yourself to.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, I feel like I'm more in tune with it now because I kind of recognize when those situations it's a feeling that you get. And when you learn how to recognize and separate that feeling from other feelings, then I think it's possible that you can like become more sensitive to it. But the trick is, and the reason why people don't always find themselves attuned to that is it's something that fear takes over, or something of that nature. Like there's too much distraction for them to put themselves. Also, there's the willingness to put yourself in a situation where you might experience that.
Oh yeah.
And so you not only have to put yourself in that, but you also have to eliminate distraction and come at it, with an open mind and a lot of personal awareness. And I think I've done that, and I feel like I'm pretty in tune with it now.
That's a great viewpoint, Bill. And it's awesome to hear that you feel like you've kind of adapted to it and also evolved along with it, to be able to understand and experience some things in this world that's very real, but that not many people can.
And and I think the hardest part about becoming in tune with something like that is, coming at it with rationality.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to experience fear and be able to separate yourself from that fear and come at something
You're not
rational.
lying.
You know, like there's a lot of people who might, you know, go rappelling off a cliff or go swim with sharks or jump out of an airplane, but while they're doing it, they're like terrified.
Yeah.
And a lot of times though, because, you know, fear has a high correlation with like a repression in the memory, you have to learn to separate that and focus on the things that keep the engine running, so to speak. So like if you jump out of a plane, you got to be thinking, okay, yes, I'm afraid, but the mechanics behind the gear are sound.
Yeah.
Like people who I'm jumping with are experienced. I literally just have to put my trust in the process.
Yep.
Like separate myself from what I'm feeling and like trust it and just kind of try to experience the experience outside of fear. So
No, that is so true, and that's a great breakdown too of, you know, the process and the reality behind of being in a situation like that. You know, it's not just hunting for ghosts, it's everyday stuff, or even maybe not everyday, but daredevil thrill-seeking type of things, you know, and it's very true. Great examples, man. So Bill, let's go back to that night. It was night that you were in that car.
right.
And not so much of what you thought then, or you can share that, but I'd like for you to share with us, if you don't mind, what you processed that night and what you process now. How do you think it's possible for the experience to have happened, and what do you believe it was?
As far as possibility, I mean, I think just judging by what it was and when it was in my life, like that was also a time in my life when, you know, I had just recently lost a grandparent, and it was a grandparent that I was relatively close with. I didn't see him all the time.
Yeah.
But I really obviously, you know, enjoyed having him around and all that. It was one of those things where I just had a lot of stuff going on. And I honestly, the feeling that I got from it, because while it was like a firm hand on the shoulder type thing, it was also kind of like, I got the feeling that it was benevolent, more or less.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where I can't necessarily attribute it to one thing or another, just because I was so young. And like, while I remembered like the feeling of it, and I remember how I felt about it, I don't really remember, like, I couldn't tell you where I was exactly. I couldn't tell you what was going on in the area exactly. But all I can say is that, you know, the grasp felt benevolent.
Okay.
And just kind of the feeling that I got from it is I got a feeling of like, you know, someone cared.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, whoa. Which is, I think, part of the reason I didn't scream and wake up everybody in the car. was like, man, I felt it, and just because the feeling that I got from the thing, like, you know, when you're going through a hard time and like a friend or possibly a sibling or a parent, like, you know, puts their hand on their shoulder and gives you like a good light, kind of lighthearted shake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that. Like,
okay.
like you were going through a tough time and somebody was there for you.
Yeah.
And I was just
trying to,
like, yeah, exactly. So it felt very, that's a good way of putting it. It felt very like reassuring, which is why I just kind of like looked at my shoulder and was like, whoa.
It's like, that really happened, but I don't feel threatened and I don't feel like I should be scared.
That's exactly what it was. It was just like, whoa, like, all right. Like, and I think, you know, that probably plays a role in why I don't feel a whole lot of fear in those types of situations. Is because, like, my first experience, it wasn't like a, you know, I didn't have some black mass standing over me like while I was trying to sleep,
Right.
or something like throwing things around the walls. Like it was something comforting and reassuring, and it was like, okay, like this is all right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great that you had a first experience like that, because unfortunately for others that's not always so. And obviously that's more than likely the reason why people have such a difficult time understanding, you know, what's going on and even wanting to know what's going on. But that's great that your first experience like that was, you know, so positive and reassuring, to help you be the person you are to this day doing what you do. That's just great. Because it's really intriguing that you had an experience in a moving vehicle, because I think for many people, there's not too many people out there that can say they've had an experience like that. Typically, it's in a stationary area. It's at a place that has history, but you were in a vehicle. To your knowledge, as a young child, there wasn't any history to the vehicle or the road that you were on. It's just kind of circumstance, really. And maybe there are a lot of people out there, they just haven't shared their stories. But for the fact that you've went through that story alone is just really cool to me.
Thanks. Yeah, I always thought it was kind of odd myself, like looking into the paranormal, that it happened like, on some random state highway between Indiana and Alabama. It's like, middle of the night, just driving around, and
it happens.
I'm like, it was just like, all right, like, cool.
So, Bill, let's jump over to your other story that you had with the lights. So, the first thing that popped into my mind, and I was just excited when I thought about it, was the original classic story of the Aurora. I believe I'm saying that right. The that not old fashioned. Well, it might be old fashioned. I don't know all my history when it comes to ufology and alien research, but it's the Aurora ship or project, which some people have proclaimed to have been man-made. Some proclaim that it's an alien craft, and some people have proclaimed that it's not any type of craft. It's some type of spiritual being or some type of other dimensional being that formulates in a triangular shape, and whatever its purpose is, it hasn't been discovered yet. But I guess with this, I'm going to try to break this up and not overwhelm you with questions, but first off, what
do my best.
What do you think it was? Why do you believe you witnessed it? And do you think it has any significance with the Aurora project?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I got one answer for every single one of those questions.
Sweet.
I have no idea. Like, I couldn't tell you why I saw it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in an argument with my brother over Guitar Hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we actually called. It happened right over one of my best friend's houses.
Okay.
And like, literally immediately after we told our parents, I ran back upstairs and grabbed my phone and was like, Drew, it's like, hey, did you see like anything? Like, have you been outside recently? Have you seen anything outside? Like, have you noticed anything? And he said he wasn't outside, but his room has his brothers and himself have like this walkout basement.
Yeah.
And he said he was like chilling in his room doing what teenagers do, and he looked outside and he thought he saw like a faint glow. Yeah. That was kind of weird because they don't have a light like in their backyard or anything.
Yeah.
And their room looks outside, but he could see like there weren't any lights on because his parents were away, and he could see like a faint glow. But that was about. I mean, it was nice to have that corroborating, like, validation.
Exactly.
Because it's like, okay, so me and my brother didn't, like, just randomly go crazy and see this weird thing.
There's
like,
not a carbon monoxide leak.
Yeah. Nobody cleaned the bathroom with the Windex and the Clorox. Like, we're all good. And so, like, it was nice to have that. But other than that, like, I mean, it was so random, and I just happened to... the windows looking out on that side of my room are super small, so it's crazy that I even caught a glimpse of it. Wow. I don't know what it was about it. It just kind of stuck out on the horizon, and I was like, that's odd. And so, like, it kind of had me just keep staring at it, because I was like, it was one of those feeling things.
Yeah.
It was like, I saw it, and I was like, something's not right there. Like, and I couldn't exactly figure it out, but the longer we watched, the more it was like, yeah, that's definitely Like, that's
something.
yeah. It's like I couldn't tell you what it is, because
Jeez.
you know, I mean, it's one of those things where before you can come to a conclusion on something, you have to be able to eliminate possibilities, and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
there's so many rumors out there, and it's crazy when to me the crazy thing isn't the phenomenon. The crazy thing is the jump to conclusion, where it's like, I definitely know it was a military exercise. I definitely know it was a UFO. It's like,
Yeah.
can you explain how it happened? And they're like, well, no. It's like, then how can you be so sure?
Exactly. Yeah.
And all I can say is, like, none of the way that any of the lights appeared,
Yeah.
none of the way that they disappeared, and especially, like, have you ever played around with one of those, like, 2-mile lasers? Have you seen those before?
I believe I've
Maybe.
seen them, but I haven't actually played with one myself live
So,
in person.
I've played with those before. They used to you know, sell them at like music festivals and stuff from time to time. You can pull some, and I had this green one, and it was crazy because like we lived in the middle of nowhere, and you could feel like, you know, you get that, you know, you point it, you feel like you could hit the star with it because it went up so high.
Wow.
And then because of those, like, it was that exact same feeling when we watched that final ball of light just shoot straight up in the air. It's like you could follow it forever, and it like just disappeared into the stars, and you were like, what? Like, what did we just witness?
Man.
What was that? And because you know, at the point that happened, we were both very interested in what was going on, because we were like jumping from window to window and being sure that it wasn't like a glare on something or like anything, because we were like already just trying to eliminate stuff. Like, no, it can't be that because this, and then we'd go over there and be like, wait, it's still happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, dang. So yeah, I couldn't tell you what it was. All I can say is, like, it was crazy, and it was not a plane to my knowledge. It wasn't any kind of modern, like, you know, it wasn't Southwest Airlines.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of a wild experience, and I've still not been able to quite narrow down what it is. But I've seen the aurora phenomenon kind of debate online, and I've definitely seen some videos of similar activity before. And when I did see it, I like freaked out initially because I think I was in college, and I saw a video on like YouTube just because I fell into a YouTube hole. And
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. You know, I was somewhere between cats and zit popping, and that showed up, and then I was just like, oh my god! It's like, I've seen this.
There it is.
Yeah. So you know, that's where I stand on that. Is inconclusive.
You know, Bill, with all your descriptions and everything, I mean, you're helping me paint a very vivid canvas right now. I'm trying to imagine that same night, you know, seeing what you saw, and it's just great, you know, the detail that you can give back from so long ago. And it's, I don't know, what really intrigues me, a specific detail, is how you spoke about the lights going off into different directions and having different patterns to them, which obviously I can't prove this, but what it kind of makes my mind think is it wasn't a single craft. So maybe it's not the aurora that we're thinking about or that we're used to. Maybe the aurora altogether isn't a single craft. But from what you described, it seems like whatever this was, living or non, it wasn't a single entity or object.
You know, it's
So hard to say.
yeah.
It is.
To me, it's just so hard to say it because it was like, you know, it fit in perfectly on that low horizon, even out in the country.
Yeah.
Like, on that low horizon, like, it's pretty dark, especially out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
Like, you couldn't get an outline, you couldn't like make anything out.
Wow.
So if it was something, like, to me, it was, you know, it started off as one individual light,
Yeah.
just hovering over in the darkness in a place where there weren't any lights.
Yeah.
And then it turned into that, and as like, you know, the whole phenomenon probably lasted like maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
And it was just like, you know, we were like in a trance watching it. It was just like, what are we looking at? And we didn't want to look away because we wanted to keep eyes on it, you know?
Of course.
Because it was like, no, I want to be able to, I want to take this in and figure out what it is later. Like, maybe I can explain it later. And then, you know, it doesn't matter how many times we explained it, I'm totally lost. Like,
No,
so
I
maybe
get
it
that.
was multiple, maybe it was one, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally get
I've
that.
never traveled in space before. I'd love to.
Yeah, who knows what type of possibilities they have? You know, interdimension, galactic.
Could be intergalactic, planetary,
Exactly.
another dimension, new galaxy. No.
How dare you?
Uh-oh. Hitting the spots. You know, and I mean, for all we know, too, Bill, I mean, being that it is a case of being inconclusive, it may have just been some type of visionary effect, you know, maybe it was coming from somewhere far away, maybe it wasn't actually there in front of you,
Right.
you know, an optical illusion of some sort. I mean, like you
Yeah.
stated, there are so many possibilities, it's not
Oh,
funny, and 3 to 5 minutes may have seemed like a long time at that time, especially witnessing it. It didn't feel like 3 to 5 minutes, but that's honestly such a short amount of time to take in what you're seeing and trying to understand it. I couldn't imagine being in a situation like that. That's out of this world, pun intended.
Yeah, no, it really was. Because, like, and I honestly, I think one of my favorite parts about that whole memory isn't just the fact that my brother also experienced it. So, like, you know, it's something that we share on that. But also the fact of, like, just how it happened.
Yeah.
Was because, I mean, when he realized that I was staring out of a window while we were, like, mid-debate, he was not happy. He was just like, hey, I'm talking to you. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, look over there. Like, what is that? And he's like, don't change the subject. I was like, look. And then, you know, we looked, and afterwards we were both just like wide-eyed looking at each other like, oh my God. And, like, we just like ran downstairs because we were like, Mom, Dad!
You guys are back on teams. For all you knew, it was a War of the Worlds, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It had some, where's Will Smith?
Need a specialist for this, man. He knows how to fly, so I mean...
Yeah, he'll save us somehow. I'm just knowing.
Once again, no copyrights or reservations for Will Smith either, guys. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding.
Just, you know, giving shout-outs to the pop culture.
Exactly. We mean no harm. Shout-outs.
And we quote in peace.
I know. All right, so, you know, Bill, you're packed full of awesome stories there, man. I mean, I feel like we could go on more and more with detail, but of course we got to be fair. And
Right. So Sam actually has a really interesting history with it.
yeah,
For sure.
Sam, go ahead.
Well, I think to preface this, I will say, I wasn't a super sheltered kid. My parents, like, nothing was off limits for us to, like, watch or talk about. It wasn't like, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, at 3, I watched It and Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Nice.
My dad didn't necessarily let me. I kept sneaking behind the couch, and I think he thought that if he let me watch it with him, it would help.
Wrong.
It did not. Like, I get flashbacks to that clown when Tim Curry smiles sometimes.
Oh, man.
But, I don't know. I think according to my mom and my dad, I've always been kind of sensitive to it too.
Yeah.
And if there was a Reddit when I was a child, I would have been the star of the creepy things kids say subreddit. It'd be all of me. When it first started, we moved to the house that I grew up in, from Gary to New Carlisle.
Okay.
And I guess I told my mom that there was a man in the garage. The garage is full of, like, that pegboard stuff with all the holes.
Yeah.
And I told her that he was watching us through the holes. I don't
That's
remember saying
interesting.
that. Yeah. But it creeped her out. And she was like, all right. Never really messed with the garage.
Thinking, yeah, it's time to sign up for neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, I think he thought there was somebody actually in the yard at some point. But my mom always told me stories. She had really crazy experiences in a house she grew up in Omaha. Nebraska. And to be honest, and if she ever listens to this, sorry, Mom, I don't think your stories are crazy now. Even at 8, like, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Like, I think that's a little far.
Healthy stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I was also, a little know-it-all, so that didn't help my case. But I had lost my first, like, real experience that kind of, I don't want to say traumatized, that's a little dramatic, impacted me. Yeah. Yeah. I get a little dramatic with my words sometimes, so
That's all right.
forgive me.
No, all natural. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. But I had lost a grandfather to cancer, and, I loved him and he loved me, but we weren't super close. My dad is one of 9 siblings, and I have a ton of cousins.
Gotcha. That's understandable.
So it was bad. And, again, my parents didn't, like, not explain things to it. So, like, I understood that Dad was gone, that he wasn't coming back and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm about 8 or 9, and Lion King was the jam at the moment.
Absolutely.
And I was a tiny bit obsessed at that point in time. I had all my little action figures. I had the soundtrack on cassette, and it was in the middle of the day. It's a snow day. My mom and her aunt are sitting downstairs talking on the couch, drinking coffee. I think my brother was gone. My sister was taking a nap. And I'm just jamming out. Just Hakuna Matataing at the top of my lungs.
Amen.
Ridiculous.
It's the 90s for you.
Yeah, we've all been.
Oh, yeah. We've all belted Timon's part at the top of our lungs. It's fine.
You better
And I just felt like I was being watched. And I knew my dad might be coming home early, and we kind of had a game of, like, scaring each other.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So I kind of very just slyly peek over my shoulder, and I don't see anything. So I'm like, okay. But I sit up, and I'm sitting more straight, and I'm just ready for it. I'm like, he's going to try to scare me, and I'm not going to be scared, and I'm just going to laugh. So go back to what I'm doing, and I hear the closet door behind me. It's one of those bifolding ones.
Oh, man.
And it just kind of crunches, and it was already open. But I'm like, that's weird. I look, nothing. So I go back to what I'm doing, not even 5 minutes later, and it crunches again, but it doesn't. They do that thing where they make a noise when they close, and then they kind of make a little bit of noise when they open. It didn't make that noise like the pressure had let off of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And so I turn around, I'm just like, I'm going to get him. I know what he's doing. And I spin around my butt real fast, and I look, and I couldn't say anything for like 2 whole minutes because there was my grandfather standing there with his arms crossed, just smiling at me.
Oh,
man. Not foggy, not creepy, it's not dark outside, like he was a solid human.
Wow.
He's like, ha, scared you.
Right.
Oh, man.
Which he totally would have done. Because that's where my dad gets his sense of humor from. And so I'm just like staring at him with my mouth just dropped open. I probably sat there for 2.5 minutes. Felt like forever.
Wow.
And then for whatever reason, like, I think because in my brain I was going, no, he's dead, no, he's dead, no, he's dead. Like, I just screamed bloody murder. I took off running down the hallway. We have a tri-level house that has like 6 stairs to the main floor and 6 stairs to the basement. I don't think I hit a single stair. I think I just leapt onto the couch between my aunt and my mom, and I'm
levitated down.
Oh, I was hysterical. And my mom said, well, we've talked. They calmed me down.
Yeah.
And my aunt tells me, well, he loved you. He's not gonna hurt you. We believe you. And my mom's like, well, we've talked about spirits, we've talked about ghosts, and if you believe in that, everybody can be a ghost. She's like, your grandpa included. She's like, he just wanted to say hi to you. So that freaked me out for a good week, though. I don't think I went back in my bedroom for a minute, but I mean, that one really cemented it in my brain.
Yeah.
My house was nuts, and I have a little helpful ghost, we like to call it, from that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a small girl that passed on the property before our house was there. It was a big farm. And it started with just like little things moving, like the kind where you kind of just think you're going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, nah, maybe I did put that there.
That's the best kind.
Right.
Yeah, real convenient when you're late for work.
And
Oh man, I see where this is going.
She's fun. But then, you know, things started happening with toys and electronics. Because, you know, obviously she's a kid. She's really interested in what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were kids. So, you know, we had... I hate them. They're so creepy, but we had Furbies.
Oh yeah, you and like 85% of the 90s generation.
Oh man. I loved it at first, but like the more it learned how to talk, I'm like, yeah, this thing's weird. I don't like it so much.
Not like the modern Amazon Echoes we have today.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, wiretap.
At least Furby was cute. But, you know, we'd take the batteries out of them all the time and put them in other things. And
Yeah.
there was one time I was home with my mom, and, you know, she sets weird things out sometimes, so she just had the Furby on the coffee table for Lord knows what reason.
Yeah.
But it had no batteries in it. And we're just sitting there, and we're sitting on the couch talking, and then it just flings its eyes open.
Oh,
And it goes,
man.
"Boo, I scared you." And I was like, Did you put...
Furby?
I said, "Did you put batteries back in that?" She said, I don't think so. So we just kind of let it sit there for a minute, and then we flipped it upside down. No batteries in it. And we're like, okay. Then a couple hours later, it just starts barking like a dog.
What?
Yeah.
And it didn't have that as an option, right? Like, I'm not
No.
too gung-ho on Furbies because I didn't really collect them, I'm sorry. But
Right.
I'm lame. But Furbies weren't known to bark like a dog, right?
They could
They
learn
pretty
it.
much just like took in the information the
Yeah,
environment gave them.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we did have dogs, so it's possible that it had learned it, but
Not without batteries.
it didn't have batteries.
Yeah,
So
like
that
Bill
was...
said. I heard you in the background, Bill. Not without batteries.
Yeah. So, things like that. There was another, like, I had a Barbie horse, because, again, 90s baby, and I just had all the Barbie. I might have been 15 at the time. It was sitting on a shelf. It definitely didn't have batteries in it, because, you know, I had to put it in my portable CD player
Yeah.
and rock out to my music. But it had this jewel in its head that you would push, and it would talk, and you could feed it like an apple, and it would talk. It just said goofy crap.
Yeah.
So I'm just standing in my room, and I'm putting things in my backpack to go to school. And I hear like a neighing noise, and I'm like, I kind of look up, and I'm like, no, that's not it. That didn't just happen. This is
Yeah.
fine. I'm just hearing things. And then it did it again, and it said this thing that it said. It's like, what did it say? Oh, you're my best friend. And then it would say, like, pet me and brush my hair. And it kind of cycled through all those, and I'm like, nah. I picked it up. Basically what I did, when she liked something, I would put it in the crawl space. I'd be like, you can have it. You can
Wow.
have it in there. Like, this is your space. Take it in here. And a doll. I had a porcelain doll that would wind up and play music. And
Oh, wow.
dolls creep me out, but my mom wanted me to have it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it was a really pretty doll.
Music
Just sat
makes
on
it
my
worse.
Yeah.
100% worse. So I'm sitting in my bed, and I'm like half asleep, and I just hear this click, 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 and I'm thinking the cat's stuck in the room.
Yeah.
So I get up and I look, and my door's shut, and there's no cat, and I go to sit back down in the bed, and the doll, the music starts playing, and it would move while it played,
Yeah.
and it played like somebody had wound it all the way up. It played for a solid minute and a half.
Oh,
Jeez.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that went in the crawl space too. But I don't know. I think the experience that really like cemented it for me that we don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
So my best friend had like crazy house. Just, if we had 9 more hours, we could deep dive into that. But,
man. I have to bring you guys back on then.
Yeah, oh man.
Part 2, part 3.
Oh yeah.
She's originally from Gary. I don't know if you know. Yeah, you're living in Indiana.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She's from here.
Yeah, I actually had a investigator on our team that was from Gary as well. He had some stories too.
Oh, for sure. But
Weird correlation, you know.
Oh man.
Man.
My ex and my friend Christine and I and a couple of our other friends who were from the Chesterton area, they came out to her house. We started our investigation there, and it was just one of those nights that felt like off.
Yeah.
Like, just that pit of your stomach, like something's gonna go wrong in this situation. And they came to us, and we were going to, I'm not gonna remember the name of the cemetery. I know it's either in Valparaiso or Chesterton, and I know that there's a bridge near it, and it's not Devil's Bridge, but we were going to the bridge and the cemetery. And we were headed out on Highway 2 through LaPorte, and we're kind of in the back roads area, and this is just dude. I don't know why he stuck out, but he did. I don't want to say he was glowing, but kind of, I don't know. He just really stuck out. Yeah. Mostly because he's walking a dark highway alone. But he's got this hoodie on, it's pulled up, and we pass him, and it was just like, we all got like the shivers when we passed him, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Now, I mean, for the fact there's a creepy dude on the highway,
right?
Late at night.
It was like that extra, and Christine's like, I don't like that dude, and I'm like, neither do I. I was like, please drive faster. And we were maybe speeding just a tad.
Yeah. Totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's a reasonable response.
Right.
Yeah,
we were driving.
That's horror movie material right there,
right.
Man. So.
Oh, thank God.
So we're doing about 60, 70 in the opposite direction of this dude. And I'm like leaning against the back window, and Christine's in the front, and she just starts flipping out. And I'm like, what is the matter with you? Why are you screaming? And she's like, it's the guy. It's the guy. And she can see him far off, and I couldn't see him yet because I'm pretty night blind. But we get closer, and he's all of a sudden, 5 miles ahead of back from where he started from.
Oh, wow.
And he's just standing there. And,
give me cold chills.
It felt like the temperature dropped. It felt
Yeah.
We felt the temperature drop. We felt like, just bad vibes all around. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to this cemetery. And, the whole time we're in the cemetery and the bridge, nothing really happens, but everybody still feels kind of off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just off. Like, he was malicious, and I was like, our friend Justin was driving, and I'm like, Justin, just, let's not take the back roads. Let's go.
Quickly.
Let's go the more main road.
Yeah. And
let's do it that way. I said we can cut through the port to get food, but let's take the highway.
Post haste.
And so we do, and we cut through LaPorte, and we hit a drive-thru, and we get food. And we're going through downtown LaPorte. There's literally, it's got to be 4 o'clock in the morning. Literally not a soul anywhere. And we're at a stoplight, and all of a sudden, there's a different dude that kind of just appears to my right, comes up to the passenger side of the car, and he said, the windows are down, and he kind of leans in and he says, you guys need to take it easy, and you need to be careful. And that's all he says, with zero context,
really?
Zero anything. Like, we have no clue who he is, and he just walks off. And he kind of disappears around a corner.
Just like, noted.
I'm like, this is a weird night. So we get back to New Carlisle, and I don't know if you've ever been there.
Can't say I have. Yeah.
There's literally one stoplight in the entire town.
Wow.
It's super small. So you turn at the stoplight, and then you take the next left at the next stop sign to get to Christine's house, and it's right there. We get to the stoplight, and, Justin went slow. He took random stranger's advice, and the car dies. All the transmission fluid had drained out of the car, and we had to push it all the way back to Christine's house.
Wow.
And it was just, we were gonna investigate the house that night. I'm like, let's just go to bed. I can't, I can't process this evening.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even what we intended it to be. Like, I could have handled the ghosts at the cemetery. Like, that's what I wanted. That's what we were there for.
Highway ghosts.
But yeah, the dude that reappeared, I don't know what homeboy was, but he was not cool. We were definitely not stopping for him.
If he had an axe in his hand, he would have been roadkill.
Oh yeah.
Man. Yeah, the car would be okay. You know, that's what insurance is for, you know. But
right.
man.
But I think the most terrifying one was Okefenokee.
Okefenokee Woods?
Oh yeah.
Man.
You've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody's heard of it at this point.
Well, the reason why I kind of freak out so much, it's 2018 still, for everyone listening. It's fall time.
Yeah.
And actually, a couple of weeks before this podcast tonight, Bill and Sam, my team and I were planning on going to Okefenokee Woods because we've heard of the murders and the possible paranormal activity, but we had just read that June this year there was a recent murder there, or at least a couple of bodies found. And a couple of my investigators on the team, after reading this and, you know, doing our research on the location, they're like, Schuler, we're not really feeling too comfortable going to this location. There's known to be more patrol officers now, and they may not take kindly to us coming out there after hours. And of course, we'd have to get permission from, you know, some type of administration. But and also with all this negative feedback that's been happening lately, it just kind of feels a little dangerous. But for the fact that you guys bring this up, Sam, Okefenokee, apparently there is something to this location, and I will not interrupt you any further. Go ahead, please.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh no,
Yeah.
this one.
This one's, it's weird. So, so we basically, the first time we went out there, we got pulled over by DNR on our way out.
Wow.
And we told him what we were doing, and we kind of explained it to him. He goes, that's fine. He goes, I just didn't want you, like, littering back there, spray painting anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a campground nearby, it's fine. He goes, but just know, if you get lost, I'm not coming in there until it's daylight to come find you.
What? That's funny.
And he wasn't joking either. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
The drive into that place is just really, the atmosphere, the way the trees go over the drive, there's just these creepy pillars. It just sets the mood anyway.
This was also like 2004, 2005, so.
2007.
Oh, okay.
So my ex and my two guy friends and I went, and there were some other girls and another guy at a different car that came with us.
Okay.
Everybody else was all about it. I had already been there and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes me really nauseous when I'm there.
Did you have an experience prior to this?
So, before this, we had tried to collect evidence, but when we left, everything was just not working.
Wow.
My EVPs were static or just robotic sounding.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an electromagnetic thing, but it definitely makes me sick to my stomach and uneasy.
Wow. Okay.
And so we get there, and we're in like a 93 Ford Taurus station wagon.
Yeah.
That doesn't have automatic anything.
Oh.
So all the locks are manual, all the windows crank. And so we walk around a bit. They try the whistling thing. They're talking. They're doing EVPs. Everybody's just kind of cutting up and having a good time. And I'm just not feeling it. So I'm like, I'm going to go sit in the car. So I slide into the back seat. I'm in the middle of the back seat. And then I'm just kind of looking around. I got really cold all of a sudden, like frigidly cold. And I got that uh-oh feeling going on. And as I'm sitting in the car, all the locks on all the doors go down. And all the door handles inside and out. Yeah.
Huh. No, totally fine.
All the door handles inside and out start going like somebody's yanking on them.
Jeez.
I can see them moving. My friends can see them moving. They're running to the car. The kid that owns the car finally gets to the car, and when he touches the car, it kind of stops.
Yeah.
And I just bolted out of the car and started crying. I'm like, we are leaving now. I'm not staying here. Like, it was probably, that place is probably one of the heaviest presence I've ever felt.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's one of those places where I'm inclined to say, and I'm not overly inclined to say this about anything, that it may be something more than human.
That's interesting.
And I don't venture down that road a whole lot. But it's hard to describe the feeling that makes me, the feeling it gives me when I'm there, to kind of put me in that state of mind.
From what you're saying, Sam, it just seems like you felt cornered and vulnerable with whatever this thing was. It's like it knew it had some type of power over you and to panic you like that.
It definitely trapped me. And I got the message loud and clear, and I was like, I'm out.
Jeez, man. You know, you've had a lot of stories shared here, and obviously probably too many with the time that we have for me to ask so many questions, but I will pick two of my favorite, just like how I did with Bill. I got two from him. Let's step back to the entity on the highway, the one before the Okefenokee. So you were saying that you saw two entities in physical form, right? And they were two separate entities? The guy on the highway first, and then the guy that came up to you and spoke to you through the window?
Yeah, and completely different feelings from both.
Okay. So let's start with the one that was a loner on the highway. How would you describe that? What do you think he or it was, and what type of intentions do you believe it had?
I definitely had, I think everybody in the car would agree, it was a negative. We didn't even slow down, and it just kind of permeated the whole car.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really don't know what it was. But weird stuff, like, particularly when my ex, Christine, and I were together, I don't know what it was about us, but we were kind of like beacons for extra strange things to happen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't really know what it was. I just know it was bad, and I wanted to be nowhere near it.
So do you think it had anything to do with the cemetery that you were going towards, or do you think it was attached to the highway, or do you think it was just something that was following somebody?
It could have been the highway, but like I said, her house was kind of crazy as well.
Yeah.
Like, super intense like that. So, you know, what we believe was haunting her house was known to mess with you a little bit.
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't confined to that space all the time.
Interesting.
It definitely could have been that as well. I really don't know.
You can't put your finger on it, but I mean, just going back to that time, trying to reimagine your emotions, what you felt, it's just,
It was intense, for sure.
Yeah, that's super intense, to say the least about it. I mean, man, I couldn't imagine, you know, driving, well, I kind of can, you know, being in a environment where you don't expect anything to happen, and then it happens, and you're just not prepared for it. But you have to live through it.
Yeah. It's one of those situations
that's
where
the challenge.
It's one of those situations where I'm glad 5 other people were there.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
they can be like, yeah, it happened.
Just like you saw it, right?
Oh yeah.
You all saw it?
Right.
All right, cool.
I couldn't imagine going through a experience like that by myself. I mean, I've had a couple experiences by myself, but not where I had to see something physical like that and actually try to remember what reality is.
Right.
So let's jump to a part 2, Sam, with the entity that you saw, I believe, in town after you guys got done eating. What do you think about that? Like, do you believe it was attached to something, it was following? What do you think is the origin of that being, if you will?
I'm not sure. It was definitely the exact opposite of the other one.
Yeah.
Like, we experienced 2 extremes in that night, which is just insane. I'm not sure. I just think it was the right place, the right time, and us, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like having the devil and the angel on your shoulder, I guess, huh?
That is 100% what that night was.
You got to have both, I can't say vices, but you had both sides with you there.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about that too. Is like, there's a lot of validity in the fact that not only is life, but apparently the afterlife is a highway.
Yeah.
No.
You're not lying, Bill. You are not lying. Great reference.
Thanks. Thought it was
Man.
appropriate.
Yeah, that's just something else, man. I mean, when I think about it, it's kind of like Bill's story with the shapes that he saw. I think about the aurora. Well, when you talk about that, not the negative entity, but the more positive, I think about a possible, guardian angel or some type of good entity that's either connected to one of you guys or that can just have free will, or maybe it was a human for all we know. Let's just quote unquote be logical, and let's say it's a human and this guy is mechanically inclined and he saw that there was some type of fluid leaking, even though it's dark, and that's not something you look for. But I'm just saying, but me personally, I want to go with a guardian angel. I wasn't there, but that's what I want to lean towards, because that's just phenomenal. I mean, what are the chances you're going to have a random person come up to you and be like, hey, drive slow, take it easy and stuff like that? That's it's just a lot.
I feel like there's a couple things that you could pull from that, like under the assumption that maybe it could have been a guardian angel. I like what you were talking about with the transmission fluid. Like, it could have been somebody who just noticed that the vehicle was
absolutely
older, but also, like, I feel like another possibility is it could have been somebody who's pretty empathic and pretty in touch with that, and had the original entity been maybe something that might have attached or been attached to her friend.
Yeah.
It just kind of, like, manifested while they were on their way. Because they were kind of in that mindset and had that energy about them.
Yeah.
If it manifested in that way, maybe it was somebody who's just really sensitive to that and was like, I feel the need to tell these people to be careful.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I've definitely, like, I feel like everybody is compelled to do things sometimes, even sometimes things that are, like, odd or normal or... I don't really know how to classify it. Everybody has a compulsion to do things at some point. So I feel like it's definitely within the realm of possibility that somebody empathic had that middle scenario been the case. Somebody could have been like, I just feel like I need to tell them this.
Yeah.
And I mean...
That's a great point, Bill. I didn't think about that, but that's a very possible outcome. Someone was really in tune and they just wanted to do the right thing. That's great.
They were like, I don't know why I need to do this, but I need to do this.
Yeah. That's why they didn't give much information. They knew it was weird to begin with, so it's like, let's just get the important words out and go on.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had compulsions to do things like that as well, like again, referencing an experience that happened to both of us that we talked about with you last week was when we were in the graveyard in Story, Indiana, and I just felt like compelled to go to this one headstone that was like way far out away from the others, like a solid 100 yards away from everything else.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as we got there, like all of our equipment just died. Like we made it within like 10 feet of it, and fresh batteries and 5 different items, and they all died at the same time. And so it's like those compulsions, especially for somebody who's in tune or so to speak, with that kind of instinct or feeling, I feel like it's definitely in the realm of possibility that they could have just felt something off and been like, I have to do this, and I don't know why, but I'm gonna.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, that's another great point, man. I mean, you can break this down and make a lot of sense out of these things, and you're doing it. That's what I love about talking with you guys. You're on that same level of understanding and, being open-minded to where you can break it down and bring some logic to the table, because for some people, just saying, ghosts and spirits isn't enough. Sometimes you have to melt it down to the core, and, when you have people that have the patience to do that, it just makes things a lot easier for other people, that might have a more difficult time. But, and on this, Sam, it goes to the Okefenokee story. I want to ask you, I know this is kind of a more short story, and it kind of just hits you randomly. But
Yeah.
what do you believe was tied to that location? Obviously, it's been recorded that there were some deaths, so there's been some negative activity. It's a public domain where people can come in, and you don't know if people are doing rituals or any type of negative practices. From what you experienced, would you say it's demonic evil of a human nature, or what would you say you encountered?
See, that's where I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's one of those places where I'd say the energy is more than human,
Okay.
but I don't know if I would go demon. I don't know if it's just a combination of all the bad things that have happened that have kind of just manifested into one thing.
Of course.
Or if it's one, particular spirit that's just nasty. I do know that, on top of the murders, it obviously was, there is record of it being Native American land and all of that as well.
Oh, okay. I did not know that part.
Yeah.
The name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the reason Indiana is, first off, that's how Indiana got its name.
Yeah.
But, land of the Indians. But also, Indiana back before we colonized it, was largely, we were like the swamp of the Midwest. Like, it's part of the reason our humidity's off the charts and why we have so many major rivers.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the shape of Indiana by itself, and you notice that, like, that bottom corner,
Yeah.
that southwestern corner, that's where White River, both forks of the White River merge, and then they meet there. It's where you got Blue River, you got the Ohio River, you got the Wabash River. Like, everything in the, like, Ohio, Pennsylvania area, all the way over to, like, Western Illinois and all the way up as far as almost Michigan, drains down there. And so, like, the northern part of Indiana used to be flat swampland, and in fact, there's still swampland up there. And there's intermittent swamps scattered all over the state. So, the Wabash gets its name because it used to be a French word. People down in Vincennes call it Quabachi. Yeah, it was originally spelled Qubache. But that was a name they got from the Native Americans about it. Like, there's a huge Native American presence, and like
For
we
sure.
have burial grounds scattered all over the state.
Yep.
And so yeah.
Places that were sacred.
So when you see places like Okefenokee, the Wabash, you got God. There's so many others.
Yeah.
Especially up in the northern part of the
For
state.
sure.
There's so many Native American named things. Places. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Bill, when it comes down to it, when I need some research done, if you guys don't mind, you're going to be my go-to people. You guys know your
Yeah, that's fine.
you guys know your geography, you know your history, you know your river routes. I mean,
Oh, man.
you
I
guys
just
are packed full
I
of
like to travel.
information. Nothing
We're
wrong
really
with
good at
that.
trivia nights, too, so.
Oh yeah, we occasionally find ourselves on the leaderboards of trivia. Neither here nor there.
That's awesome. No, that's fantastic that you guys have all this information and the ability to retain it too. Say that, because I'm not the best at memorizing a whole bunch, but I try to have the vitals, held somewhere in my mind. But
Yeah, I can't explain that part.
Yeah, I can't either.
supernatural. Let's just say it's paranormal, guys, and,
There you go.
and,
Hey.
and live with it.
Just tick that box.
So Sam, when it comes back to Okefenokee, then like you said, you're kind of inconclusive, just like with Bill's second story. He feels inconclusive. But with you guys giving a little information on it being possible Native American burial grounds, I mean, maybe it's not the spirits of the men that were murdered, so many years ago. This could date back hundreds and hundreds of years, and there's something greater there.
Well, in the fact that there's the belief that a place can be scarred from so many bad things happening to it, and that can kind of create its own energy in and of itself. So it's hard to interact with, and it's hard to explain, and it's a lot of people go there and they get nothing. A lot of people go there and then the locals are just messing with them, hiding in the woods and being jerks. And then I'm not the only one that I've known that has crazy stories like that from that place either. And, you know, they've had other people to back them up as well.
Obviously, the DNR guy.
Yeah, the DNR guy was not about it, so he's definitely experienced
something. You have
something.
to get with him and talk a little bit.
Right. If he's still working that gig.
Yeah, seriously, he's probably trying to move on to a more peaceful reservation, you know, somewhere.
Yeah, he's like, get me out of this place.
Man.
Yeah, so you know, it's just one of those places that's hard to put a pin in.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, that can be a bittersweet in a sense, because it's like, it kind of verifies that there's something supernatural going on to an extent of some ability. There's something not quote unquote normal about it, but it's also going to eat at you, you know, because you want to know what's going on. You want to know the history and get down to it to understand the phenomenon. But
and you want to separate what's become urban legend.
Exactly. That's a wonderful statement. Yeah, urban legend can really hurt you.
Absolutely. Because there's Hookman's Road in LaPorte that, you know, every town has a Hookman story. Every state has a Hookman story.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just a creepy road. But I did research a lot. Like, these investigations were literally all I did from the time I was like 13 until my early 20s.
Nice.
So I was in the libraries, I was in the archives, and, you know, I can't find anything about that road other than a couple car accidents. Yeah. So, you know, it kind of morphed into its own situation where people were like, oh, there's this creepy shack and we're going to say this, and it just blew up and everybody was driving down it constantly. And, you know, the people that lived there were getting angry about it and acting out when they found people parked on the road.
Yeah.
So it definitely crosses a line in some points.
And I think that'd be a whole nother topic too that we could, you know, really melt down, is urban legend and folklore compared to, you know, reality of a phenomenon, a paranormal phenomenon. And you know, in short, in this past year, my team and I, we've actually been going to a lot of locations in Indiana that are known to be quote unquote folklore, you know, and more urban legend than actually a proven haunted location. And some have actually proven to be true in our opinion, you know, but then there's been a couple just recently we've had that we are pretty sure have just been strictly, you know, urban legend. You know, it's people are, they're either panicky or they're just trying to start a rumor to get some reputation going on, or, you know, whatever it may be.
It was a freak incident that happened one time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Urban legends are very hit and miss, because sometimes, you know, like you said, sometimes there's, you know, part of the reason that it is an urban legend is people don't know the history, and sometimes it's something that either wasn't documented or got lost in time or is fairly recent, or you know, it's something that's just unattributed. And people start talking about it like, man, I had this crazy thing happen. And then, you know, somebody comes over and they have it happen. They're like, wow, that did happen. And then it spirals from truth.
Yeah.
Then there's exactly what you're talking about. Other times it's like, oh, that building gives me the heebie-jeebies. And then somebody makes up a story about it. And then all of a sudden, like, you've got this house that is otherwise innocuous that people are like, the hash-slinging slasher lived there. It's like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the perfect example of, like, legend spinning from truth is the Diana of the Dunes story. I mean, she was a real person. Yeah. Her name wasn't Diana. She was a very interesting person. Her history's out there. She led an interesting life. But when you research it, the legend is so different from her actual life. Like, it's just insane. And I think her real story is more interesting than the legend. But, you know, they kind of turned her into a lady in white who was just distraught.
There's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that came from a real place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people have seen her because that's where she lived. That's where she passed. That's, you know, that part's true. But the middle pieces got just all
jumbled up.
It's so crazy because her real history is so readily available. It's not something you have to dig really deep for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually been published and made public.
Right. So that's crazy to me. But, I mean, it's a good example of that for sure.
It's just like the telephone game, I guess. You know, after a while, people forget or they want to change something, and then there you go.
Right.
You have a legend now.
Right.
So, I can't believe how fast the time has passed. So I kind of can because, when you're talking about something so amazing such as the paranormal, time flies when you're having fun. But
But after that, time is irrelevant.
Oh, shush.
No.
there's another topic we'll have to jolt down.
Yeah.
But Sam and Bill, with you guys getting active again in the paranormal, is there any way, or would you guys like to make yourselves known to where people can contact you for advice or inquiries or anything like that regarding the paranormal and such?
Yeah,
What type of outlets do you guys have that you feel comfortable sharing?
so, my Instagram's public. Both of our Instagrams are public.
Yeah. Instagram actually wouldn't be a bad one. Our Instagrams aren't really related necessarily to the paranormal, but occasionally we go to like we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. We're very much along the lines of hobbyists at the moment, but we're always open to new things, especially if it's in the area or if people are looking for like advice and stuff.
Absolutely.
We'd be happy to pass any advice that we can along, or if they need help like researching an area or anything like that, always down to see what we can do based on how much time we actually have available to us.
Of course.
But yeah, so Sam's Instagram is
Sam J. Welk. It's all one word.
Okay.
Yep. So
And Bill?
which is
Mine is actually,
I'll have to spell it because people kind of get it backwards. It's the Billist. So it's at THA dot BILLEST.
Awesome. Okay.
So the like a gamer dot Billist.
And my YouTube channel is still active. It's just my name, Samantha Shearer, SHEARER. That's going to be updated soon, but it does have my contact. It has my Instagram and all that on there as well.
Sweet. Yeah, and even though you guys aren't fully where you want to be right now, I think it's important to still have what you have or what you used to have to be put out there. So once you guys get back in the game full-fledged, you're going to be able to share this information. And also, if people are looking in your area or even from Indiana or anywhere that hear this, they're going to know you guys are very, very professional and very informative on the paranormal and supernatural, which I highly recommend people talking to you because I see myself and my team talking with you guys in the future too about not just, locations we've already discussed, but future locations too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure.
We'd be happy to do that. So, we try to do our homework as much as possible, mainly because the way that we both approach it is just a way of, we don't like to jump to conclusions, and then on top of that, it's just a matter of, kind of honing in on what the scope of possibilities are for certain phenomenon, and then like finding out how you can limit interference with that phenomenon, basically. Is like, okay, for instance, take Sam's account of the highway. We narrowed it down to probably about 3, maybe 4 possibilities, where it's like, you go from the hard-bodied, like living, maybe it was just a weird coincidence situation, all the way over to they're both spirits, one's malicious, one's benevolent, like, and like anywhere in between that, anything that you can do to kind of eliminate one thing from another, and just kind of narrow it down is helpful. So, we're definitely down to help out.
That's great, Bill. And Sam, yeah, a plug and play is the best way to do it, man, And even if you don't find the answer right away, at least you have something to build on. So that's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys personally for coming on and talking about the paranormal with me and sharing your experiences with everyone. And I also personally look forward to speaking with you guys in the future on a lot of other crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
Right on, man.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has been really fun.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, it's always fun talking about the paranormal. I think I can agree with you guys on that one.
Totally.
All right, well, hey, you guys have a wonderful evening, and once again, thank you for coming on the podcast tonight.
All right.
Yeah, no problem, man. Good luck with you and your team in the future.
Well, I'd have to say that was a very enlightening conversation that I had with Bill and Sam. I mean, for the plain fact that we're talking about two different realms that can meet in one, it kind of reminds me of the first conversation I had on our podcast here with Mary about how spirituality and science can coexist. And that's exactly what myself, Bill, and Sam were talking about, how science techniques and formulas can combine into the physical and metaphysical world. It's really crazy how everything can just tie in and become one, if you will. We all coexist with what we know as the physical world and the non-physical world. So it's really interesting. And of course, another interesting moment that we had was on how we decided to debunk something and keep your mind open whenever you're paranormal investigating, when you think you may have gotten something, but it actually might be some type of natural occurrence, such as picking up some type of mineral underground or even an underground water source such as a stream or a river. So with all of that said, Bill and Sam, thank you guys for coming on once again. You guys were awesome to talk to. You're very intelligent. You guys really know how to break things down into a way that anyone can understand them and at least, poke and prod at them and kind of get a grasp of what you're talking about. So again, I thank you very much. Alright, so if any of you out there would like to contact Bill or Sam, you can do so through Instagram. Let's go ahead and start with Bill. You can contact Bill at his personal Instagram at THA_BILLEST, which spells out the.billest. Alright, so now we got Sam. You can contact Sam at her personal Instagram at SAMJWILK, which spells out Sam J. Wilk. So if you guys want to contact them, talk about a little paranormal or even some scientific theories, they can set you guys up just fine. A lot of good detail and a lot of good background homework research. And of course, if you guys want to contact us, PILT Paranormal, you know where to, which is at our Instagram, Facebook, website, or even here at our podcast. And of course, any questions, concerns, or comments that you have, we'll get back to you ASAP. And even if you want to get onto our podcast, be sure just to let us know and we'll see what we can do for you. Alright, I'd have to say this pretty much sums up the episode for today. Sadly, once again, it looks like we're going to have to go ahead and put the podcast to an end for now. Thank you guys for stopping by, tuning in, and listening to the podcast. Until next time, as always, stay frosty.